Hey everybody, Nakia here. It's gonna pop out in just a second. There we go. We're gonna remove this banner down here. There we go. All right, so here we are. It's our very first ever night shift live, and just the history here, folks. If you don't, we'll give it to you real quick. So Night Shift is an event that Austin, Texas musicians created. Really is a way to start letting folks get out in the community on an evening that most folks didn't necessarily have shows. So it was on a Monday night. We'd host those things at Beerland, and we would invite musicians and folks from the city to come in and talk and listen to each other and find out what's going on. And then towards the end of the night, after we've had some pizza and a few drinks, then we would get folks up on stage and they'd start, talking and singing and dancing, and we had a good time. And we were doing that for a while at Beerland, pretty much, for about 2 months. And that was really a lot of work, from Pat. Pat, if you want to hop in real quick so we can let everybody see you at home. Pat's running master control.
Hey guys, how's it going tonight?
Of course, and so we're just making this up as we go along because that's what we do, and that's how we roll. So we are going to get right into it. Pat's going to bring our first guest on virtually. Pat's running the show at his house in Westlake, and I'm here at home. So if anything goes wrong, we can play Pat.
That's right. You guys blame me. Don't blame anyone else.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get our first guest in the show.
Right. We're going to bring Brendan Anthony, the director of the Texas Music Office. It's coming up right now, Brendan.
Great. There he is.
Evening, everybody. How are you?
Hi, Brendan.
Hey.
Thanks for being here, man. I wanted to just start off for a minute by kind of letting you introduce yourself and tell us, what you do and where you do it, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, sure. I'm a lifelong musician and music industry professional, and for the past little over 5 years, I've run the Texas Music Office. So I go to work at the Capitol Complex. Our office is in the office of the governor. We sit on the economic development and tourism team, and we oversee economic development for the music industry in the state of Texas. We work in various community outreach capacities. We work federally to understand changes in the congressional lawmaking landscape and how those changes affect small business in Texas. We keep our eye on changes federally that are going to filter back to us for certain, and we try to raise a voice when we can. We work at the State House to inform members per our legislative mandate about the music industry. We talk about its importance as, yes, a cultural landmark for the state, but also as a true economic contributor, and one that is very worthy of support. We work in communities around the state to help them build systems similar to the ones that exist in Austin, where you have multi-layered nonprofit support and systemic support within city government. It wouldn't surprise you to know that a few years ago, Austin was the only city in Texas that had anything like that going on, and now 10 cities in the state do, and we're aiming for 20 this year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so a lot of community outreach, a lot of travel, a lot of work in Nashville and New York and DC in particular, to raise awareness about the Texas music scene as a viable industry center. We did things like move BMI in a new role to Austin for the first time. to start adding pieces to our industry infrastructure. So lots of stuff going on at the office. I'm really proud to do what I do. It's an honor to go into work every day and work for y'all.
Thank you so much. And thanks again for being here. I just want to get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about the role that Texas Music Office has been serving the music community during this pandemic?
Yeah, so a lot of the things you just heard me say had to come to an end momentarily, or a halt momentarily, while we pivoted to an information sharing role. Of course, none of us can go to the office right now. We're all working remotely, and I'm very proud of my team for the way they've come along and learned how to work remotely. But we're about information share right now. We're about understanding what pieces of the relief packages coming from the Fed can benefit our people in our sector. We're trying to figure out exactly what the numbers look like after this stoppage. And we're trying to figure out exactly how we can be the best servants for the industry once we get the green flag for reopening, however that's going to look. So if you visited texasmusicoffice.com today and you looked at our resources page, you'd see a pretty exhaustive list of resources that industry professionals can take advantage of. And if you follow our socials, we try to stay abreast of changes that happen every day. This is very fluid situation. So we try to post daily on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook about what's happening, new changes to the laws, new changes to benefits, et cetera. So we're in the information share business. We try to be the best clearinghouse for info we can. And we do a ton of one-on-one consultations with professionals trying to figure out how to keep their businesses afloat, to bridge the gap, moves they could make or not, et cetera.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know is already happening at a federal level to help the music community, and what's happening, if anything, on the state level for the music community?
Yeah, so wrapped up in the PAYERS Act were some tools to help out-of-work Americans. So those filtered down to the states. So through Texas Workforce Commission, you can apply for benefits as a 1099 or self-employed person and access funds from the CARES Act. It's difficult, but I have to give a great deal of credit to Texas Workforce Commission for trying to keep up with the massive demand they've seen. But you should keep trying, TWC, to access those funds. I know it's very difficult. They're ramping up and doing a fantastic job of that. So there are, dollars out there for self-employed people, 1099 people. Statewide, the governor waived waiting period for unemployment and the reference side of unemployment, so you can access employment dollars immediately after you're moved off of payroll to alleviate the burden on small business. And then there are small business administration loans available in record numbers, of course, for small businesses affected by COVID-19 closure. So most of these things emanate from the federal government, but the trade organizations too are working very hard to encourage states to unlock these funds. There are grants like Artist Relief and Music Care is operating. So it's a multi-tiered national approach. There's a really great Billboard article out there too that's a living document. They're adding resources state by state. You can kind of check on those to see how different places are responding. I think our leadership statewide has been pretty fantastic. We at the music office have the resources to share information with a constituency that no other state does. So, we're taking those CARES Act ideas and translating to our constituency. We're connecting people with Texas Workforce Commission. We're sharing information about SBA dollars, et cetera. So that's kind of the landscape as I see it right now.
That's great. And you guys have been doing a great job over at the Texas Music Office of really helping to disseminate that information and get it out. We've been super impressed. And of course, from a local Austin standpoint, we've also been trying to get as much of that information as possible. And your office has been a big help in making sure that we're getting all of that. We're so grateful.
Thank you.
What do you think musicians who have had income affected by this pandemic need to know or need to be doing now? And are there any other key dates of, deadlines for things that you know about, or anything that we need to be passing on to musicians?
Yeah, what we're telling folks is to apply now. Just apply now for the things they're eligible for. Any grants or loans available, unemployment benefits available, apply now. Don't wait. Even if maybe you're doing okay right now, you can ride this out for another X amount of days or weeks or months or whatever else. I don't want to make anyone worried unnecessarily right now, but apply now for those benefits so you're in the queue for them. By the time you need them, you might be in a waiting period that you can ill afford. So, just apply now, do the research through our resources and other places, and figure out what might work for you and apply for that stuff now. Just start doing it. I don't, like I said, I don't want to make anyone unduly concerned. I'm not a grim prognosticator about this. All I'm doing right now is sharing with you tools that are available to help yourself. So please don't hear from me dates or timelines about work stoppage. I'm just telling you, pay attention to the tools out there, take advantage of them, and put them to work for you. Thanks
for that. How do you think that musicians who are if you could say like something kind of just offering hope to musicians around this, that because we know it's going to be as you said, you don't want to be too grim about it, but we know that the realities is that a lot of venues are in danger of closing permanently, and there's lots of people hypothesizing about when the state of concerts are going to be back to normal, all of these things. What would you say to musicians who are really scared right now that they may be out of work as a live musician for a really long extended period of time? Any thoughts on just what kind of keeps you going and pushing you towards making sure that you keep your head kind of sane and not give up on this?
Yeah, and I'll be really honest. This is not a bureaucratic answer. I get really sad about the state of things at the moment that we're experiencing. This is a time where people are planning large outdoor shows all the way down to the club shows that kind of go on throughout the year. This is our time when the live music business really ramps up. The touring acts go to work, the sheds come alive, everything's sort of vibrant, and sort of everybody's working from April through October, the end of September, so, I've got my personal ways of dealing with an industry that I've been involved with since I was a late teen, just momentarily disappearing.
Right.
Really unsettling. There isn't anything comforting about the situation, and just knowing that you can't go see and experience the kind of things that have gotten you through, whether you're playing it or experiencing it, your darkest moments and your best moments and your most social moments. So, we're all going to have to find ways to stay healthy mentally through that experience, however long it lasts.
Right.
So, take advantage of services that Sims offers, take advantages of things that Ham offers. If you have access to, mental health outlets and you think you need to take advantage of them, then go do it. Now's the perfect time to start that relationship. So, keep yourself mentally healthy, eat right and exercise, keep your mind right. This group that we serve, this constituency that we serve, this live music community, this songwriting community, this performing community in Texas is one of the most entrepreneurial and resilient groups and supportive and connected groups I've ever been a part of. I can look at how this group responded when Hurricane Harvey hit, which is one of the biggest natural disasters that's ever happened to the state. Of course, kind of work stoppage pales in comparison to what's happening now, but I've seen the way Texas musicians respond to crisis and help each other through them. And I have all the expectation in the world that that's what's going to happen on the other side of this. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know when exactly that looks like, but I have a lot of faith, and I'm very proud of the efforts that I see across the state of examples of Texans helping Texans, creating funds out of thin air, people supporting each other, and just asking how you're doing. So
Yeah.
we'll get through it, man.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I'm glad to hear you, really, it's, as we're seeing, more and more, we can't really afford to sugarcoat things. We have to be, upfront about this stuff, because it is, as probably better than most people, the business of music that we are in should be treated as a business. And it's more important than ever that musicians, I think what we're seeing a lot of too, is a lot of musicians within our group who maybe had been putting off, getting a DBA set up or an LLC or some of these things to kind of help legitimize what they're doing, and really bring themselves up to that next level. And that was a real issue as soon as the TWC stuff opened up, because they need a lot of those documents. You need that documentation to be able to show where you pay taxes and you do these things. And so we're really going to be leaning on, Texas Music Office and other, organizations like ours and Austin Music Foundation, when we come out of this, to really now actually to start helping people. If you don't have these things in order, let's get our house in order now, so the next time something like this happens, we're ready.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a couple takeaways from it. I always think that if you're going to work as an industry professional and you're going to be a small business, that you need to act like other small businesses, exactly for this reason. Because when you talk to systems that are larger than yourself, you have to speak a language that they understand. And they understand historical data, and they understand DBA, and they understand tax returns and that sort of thing. So once you need help from an agency like that and you haven't taken the steps to form up as a small business, it might be too late. So I will say, treat yourself like a small business. If you've written your very first song, form affiliations that matter, and treat yourself like a small business from day one. It will serve you in the long run. Whenever that chip gets cashed, you'll have the cash to back it. The second thing is, and I want to say this to people statewide, I think venues and musicians should set aside occasionally competitions or reasons they might have for not working together, and find ways to speak with one voice about issues that matter to all of them. Groups that are not venues and not musicians, et cetera, have been represented well by trade organizations in the past, because at times like these, they can help that industry speak with one voice.
Yes.
I think people should consider what that looks like, what it looks like for a group of venues to be in an association together, to speak for themselves when times get really, really tough. Hopefully not this tough again, but when times get tough. So just a couple takeaways. These are future concepts, but yeah, treat yourself like a business, work with each other.
Absolutely. And, that's obviously one of the roles that Austin, Texas musicians, is really working toward is to kind of get musicians to really advocate for themselves and to band together to do that. And we've seen such a real interest over the last year since we've started this effort in our community, and lots of musicians who are engaging on a civic level that we've not seen before. So really grateful for that. One more time, if you could tell people again, where to find, if they have questions about TMO, any of the resources. We've got the website up, obviously, right here. I think it was up there for a second, the Gov.
Thank you. Yeah.
gov.texas.gov/music. Is that right?
Yeah. The easiest way to get through that is texasmusicoffice.com. It's a redirect. So texasmusicoffice.com. I shared some social links. You can find us pretty easily on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you go to texasmusicoffice.com and subscribe to the newsletter, we're hitting tens of thousands of people every time we push play on that to share updated resources. That's a statewide thing, and people from outside the state get that too. So, bookmark those pages for the time being, if you'd like. And, we're updating these daily. So this is information for you. Our office works for you through texasmusicoffice.com. You can reach any member of my staff and myself anytime you want. And we're always picking up the phone to talk one-on-one with people. So that's part of our job too. And we're thrilled to do it.
Thanks so much. And, before you go, a lot of people, you can see folks at home that can see you've got fiddles back there and guitars.
This is the only room in the house I feel safe.
Some people might not know that you, before you took this job, you were a full-time musician and on the road, playing with folks, pretty much, probably I would say close to 150, 200 nights a year, even.
Yeah, every bit of it. From late teens through 2010, that's all I did. I was in the studio, or I was on a tour bus, or a van, playing on stages and making music for a living. That's I can say without exaggeration, for that entire time, that's all I did. And I've stayed in music. I've been really fortunate to stay in music and stay around what I love and work for what I love. But I understand exactly what it means to derive a paycheck from making music, playing along with someone else's creation, or working on your own. So, I get it. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. It's not for everybody, but what an amazing place to live and work.
Oh, man. Well, I know we had some questions from the audience, but I know you also had to jump. So we'll take those and then we'll bring them to you via email and see if you can get us some answers on that stuff. And we got to get our next guest up here. But thank you so much for being on our very first episode of Night Shift. We will definitely have you back up. We're going to now bring up our Musicians Advisory Panel member. This is our dear friend, LouLou Glichkani.
Hi.
Hi, LouLou. Obviously, a lot of people might know you from Thievery Corporation, or maybe they've seen you at Justine's.
Mm-hmm.
But I recently, I knew, we got you on the Musicians Advisory Panel, but even when you submitted your application, I went to Pat and I was like, wait, is this the LouLou? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, she's in the band Night Glitter. I was like, what? I was like, oh, now it all makes sense. Yeah.
Oh my God, Pat, you better take out that U after the double O's.
Yep. There you go.
Good try. We should just stick to LouLou.
Yeah, that's fine. We can get that. He'll fix that up.
I actually saw you the first time I moved to Austin. The years keep piling up. I used to say 5 years forever, but now it's almost 7 years that I've been in Austin. And I think the first time I saw you was at the Scottish Rite doing a Sims benefit with Adrian Quesada was the band.
Oh, so the Heart of the City.
Yes.
Yes.
I was Jazz Mills invited me, who I love. Jazz is has a special place in my heart.
Yes, I think has a special place in everybody's heart.
In everybody's heart. Yeah. But that's when I saw you for the first time, and I loved it. I loved the energy, and I was like, "What is Sims? What is Ham?" I was new to the city, so that's how I met you for the first time.
Well, thanks for being here tonight and being officially our second guest on our Night Shift Live. We're going to ask you a few questions and get into this. First of all, I wanted to say I understand that you have a new single coming out next week that Night Glitter has coming out.
Yeah.
So where can folks find that when it does come out?
So it's not just a single. It's a single's coming out, but it's our first record. It's our record release.
Okay, great.
Which the timing of it is pretty interesting.
We're going to talk about that actually. Pat will throw the link up in the bottom for us while we're talking about it.
I think Bandcamp. So Night Glitter is on 9 Mile Records, which is a local record label, and 9 Mile found out that Bandcamp actually had a special for musicians during COVID-19 where they waived all the fees. So you could do pre-sales and upload your merch, and they were waiving their fees. So we actually have pre-sales available on Bandcamp, and you have the link below, nightglitter.bandcamp.com. And so, yeah, we actually had a awesome record release show that was supposed to be at Mohawk, outside on a Saturday night with Lord Friday the 13th.
Oh, I love Lord Friday the 13th.
Twins. I love the Sloan twins and Sir Woman.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
Really good lineup. So hopefully it's something that will be in the works in the future. But it was a pretty galactic, magical lineup. So I love both of those bands. So the record release party was on April 25th. So the record is going to be released that week around the 20th. So
Awesome.
you can find the pre-sales on Bandcamp.
Great. So let's talk a little bit then about, like how you got involved in the Musicians Advisory Panel, and really like what you feel like you would like to do and how you would like to serve the Austin music community through MAP.
Well, I actually, heard of this whole cult from Pat. I'm just kidding. But I've
I
met
wasn't too persuasive, was I?
look like a cult leader. So Pat and I actually met through the music scene, through shows, and he's been extremely supportive, always shows up for Night Glitter and I believe Thievery in the past as well. But he invited me and kind of discussed what would be somehow the breach between different organizations in the city and musicians. And I think that one of the things that I like as far as my ability as a communicator and a musician is to breach gaps between people and to bring people together, which is something Jazz Mills and I always talk about. If you could just be a fire starter all the time. So I think that was the initial attraction, and I'm still learning and trying to understand what, we can do and what I think we all are, of what we can bring to the community. But I think as far as my role, I'd like to just be able to bring people together and give them some sort of, background on what's going on.
Yeah. And that's what really, one of our main goals really with the Musicians Advisory Panel is to create, that inner circle of folks that can then go out to their next circle of folks and go out to their next circle of folks and really, serve as a bridge to what we're doing, but also to bring in the voices and the topics and the issues that we need to hear from the community, because there are lots of musicians that are in the group, right? There's almost 4,500 of us in there now. And I know a lot of folks in town, but I can't go to all the shows. I don't play all the venues, so, we really depend on y'all to tell us what's happening in the scene on the musician ends of things. And so we're really glad that you're on board for that. I don't want to spend a lot of time.
No, but I mean, I agree. And I also think that I like approaching other musicians for something different than being like, hey, come to my show. I think I feel like this is somehow a way to just bring us together in a different way and just to make us stronger,
Absolutely. So you touched on a minute ago about your record release show, obviously having to be canceled. What other ways has COVID-19 and this pandemic really affected your music business?
I mean, let's look at my income, like my household income.
Right.
80% of my income comes from music. I'm also a mom, and I live with a musician who's also a dad, and we are a blended family. So we're 2 adults and 2 kids, 2 musicians. But 80% of our income comes from music, shows and studio sessions, but mainly live entertainment. About 15% comes from service industry, and 5% is like arts and crafts,
Sure.
So, I mean, 80% of our income is on pause right now. So we had just a number of shows between both my partner, John Michael Chef, and I have all our shows were canceled. He plays with so many people, bass, and the studio sessions, his were canceled. All my tours that were pending, you know, we look at a calendar for the year and you book about a year and a half ahead, and you constantly check the calendar with your record label, and the color codings change from pending to booked, and they went from pending to blank.
Wow.
For the rest of the year. And that's pretty intense, you know? So yeah, so as far as the impact, I mean,
Did you totally freak out?
you know, I did. I mean, I'm a different.
I would have freaked out. That's
I'm a different kind of freak out. I'll go through my process.
Okay.
You know, so one of the things, I mean, a lot of people don't know maybe about me is that, you know, I am a first generation refugee. My parents are Iranian. I'm Turkish, Iranian, Mongolian background, and we exiled from Iran through the revolution, during the revolution.
Whoa.
We were on house arrest when I was a kid, politically house arrest.
Like military, you can't leave the house.
Military, like Iranian military in the back of our door that wouldn't let the family leave. We had curfew for hot water and electricity when I was a kid. So the lockdown and feels familiar, but in a completely different way, where this is kind of there's a lot of silver lining, which we can, you know, talk about as far as what I do to stay positive.
Yeah, that was gonna be, because I kind of freaked out too when I
familiar with this.
Started to be canceled.
Totally. But my initial freak out was more, I guess, on a global, like the freak out was more like, oh, shoot, I wanted to say the F word, but I'm trying to be polite. But
it's okay. We don't
shift. But you know, the initial thing was like, fuck.
Right.
The world is not going to be the same. So I think that's where my freakouts are. I think, you know, it's good to be positive, but you have to make sure you're not like naive about the situation and how big it is. It's that we are going to face like a really rise in poverty in all levels, and unemployment levels are going up. So my freak out wasn't initially about, I think my shows became secondary, where I was like, we have a community of friends and family. Sure. I immediately planted a garden. Like, I mean, John Michael and I built this high-raised magical garden back in February, you know? So we and just to be clear, I've been self-quarantined since the last week of February.
Whoa.
Because I came back from California, and then South by was canceling. Things were weird at Justine's where I could sense that people weren't coming. You know, there was like this slow, and I just ultimately felt like it was best to just stay home. And all my shows, literally the following day where I was like, I'm not going out anymore, the shows were canceled. So I've been quarantined for 2 months.
Wow.
And the process for me is
take
it a day at a time and think about what are some of the solutions. Like, I'm not going to be able to play shows anytime soon. I mean, there's 2 shows that are still booked at the Chapel in San Francisco end of May.
Wow.
In the back of my head, I'll be like, that's amazing if they'll be you can go play, you know, but realistically, and it's with Poi Dog, with one of my bandmates in Free Corporation, Frank's band, Poi Dog Pondering. And I love San Francisco, but I know those aren't going to happen. So what I decided to do is like, maybe that's going to be, you know, May is where I'm going to start thinking of how I'm going to present the music. I just haven't been able to do it at this moment, like live and doing a lot, which I'm amazed at the enthusiasm of so many musicians who are able to play so many live shows from their living rooms. I just haven't been able to.
Yeah. Well, I know that you were talking about planting a garden, and you've got some other things that you're
so many tangents. Sorry.
That's all good. But we do have to get our next guest in here. But I think it's interesting that our next guest is Cody Cowan. from the Red River Cultural District, who obviously you've known probably for a long time.
I do. I actually, we met through different, but don't know him that well. So
Okay.
Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah. And obviously the Mohawk, Cody used to be the general manager of Mohawk, so you having your show there would have been right. He would have been there taking photos, even as because one of the things we love about Cody, he's a great photographer. But LouLou, thanks so much for being on the show. Pat, if you can put up their Bandcamp page again one more time, so folks at home can go check that out, that'd be great. And we'll be in touch soon with more about Musicians Advisory Panel. And we also have a thing up there somewhere, Pat, that's a scroll at the bottom banner that, if people want more information about all ATX musicians, that they can go to our website at austintexasmusicians.org or atxmusicians.org, either one. Thank you again, LouLou. Let's get Pat.
I just wanted to thank you for having me. This was actually my first time going live, so it kind of broke the ice.
Oh, wow. Really? Okay.
Pop that cherry. I'm ready. I'm ready. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So much love to you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right.
What's happening?
There's Cody Cowan. Cody, just real quick, obviously you are the executive director of Red River Cultural District. I did just out you as the former GM at Mohawk, but people might not know that you're like a hometown kid, and you've been at this for a while, and you actually played some music and was kind of a street punk for a while. So here you are.
Some things don't change.
That's right.
Used to sling drinks and clean piss troughs at the original emos, so you gotta be all in the music lifestyle.
That's totally.
Can't be afraid to get your hands dirty and have a little fun.
For folks at home who don't know, tell us what the Red River Cultural District is and kind of about its mission and where it came from.
Yeah, so the city of Austin has a long tradition of rock and roll and live music venues. Somewhere from the early 90s until present, really starting with emos downtown at Styx and Red River, a lot of music started popping up, forming, chugging right between 12th and 6th Street. There had always been a lot of clubs down there historically. There's some fun conversations I've been having with old heads about that. But from that point on, basically between 6th Street and 12th Street, currently there's about a dozen live music venues. So a bunch of us got together about 5-6 years ago, realizing every year was one step forward, 2 steps back, just in terms of keeping the music scene going in Austin, and realizing that, we really had no chance of being successful keeping the live music story going and employing all of our friends and compatriots down in Red River unless we banded together and we started working together as a coalition that really focused on the cultural community down there. So our mission has to do with preserving that cultural community and developing economy in a way, working alongside musicians, working alongside service industry folks to better create a sustainable employment, a sustainable lifestyle, to preserve the brand of the live music capital of Austin. I mean, all this seems almost a bit ridiculous at this point because we're living in a whole new reality and have been for some time now.
Yeah.
But, I think regardless of outcome going forward, many of us are going to be defined and moved and motivated by music and are going to want to keep performances happening in Austin and keep spaces open, as hard and as difficult as it might seem for that to happen anytime this year.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the things that we want to talk about. One of the original questions that I had for you really was, about the role that those merchants play in our music economy. But I think what might even be more, prescient right now is really talking about what it would look like without those folks in play. What's going to happen to that area and to our economy without live music down there, and the importance of just what it means to our economy. I know that one of the things that I really love about you is that you have the math and the numbers to back up the things that matter about this. So if you could speak a little bit to just the economic impact of the district and why it's so important to Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I won't dig into all the white papers that have been written over the past 10 years because, quite frankly, everyone ignored them.
That's right.
Every year up until now. So who cares?
Right.
But I will talk about economy. I mean, 30% of the private workforce in Austin is service industry, and for those of us in the service industry, especially in live music, we're the first to go, and we're going to be the last to show in terms of pandemic. So, right now, I'd say 98, 99% of my friends and colleagues are all unemployed and have been for 2, 3, 3.5 weeks now. I think one of the biggest pieces of a misunderstanding that's important to clear up is that, we're all part of the service industry. We're all part of the working class. There's been this perception about musicians versus venues, or this person versus that. I mean, we're all just working schmucks that love music and we're motivated by music. If we wanted to get rich, we all would have been doing something much different than this. And quite frankly, live music venues are 98% cost models, which means we're employment creators and like art and culture creators, but there's very little to no profit in it, even if you're pretty kick-ass at what you're doing. So that makes us unique, but not totally unique in terms of small business, because everyone's just gotten their ass kicked by being closed. I mean, globally, I'm reading that most small businesses have between 15 and 30 days of cushion in terms of operational income, which means we're already well past 30 days. So if we're being real, the prospect of any small businesses opening, including including live music venues, without there being really strong public assistance is pretty close to zero. I mean, I hate to be the doom and gloom guy. I know that Brendan did a great job of giving the team coach speech, but here we are 30 days in. I think it's really important to manage people's expectations about what's happening and not bullshit around about it.
Right.
As a history guy and an old punk, it's like, governments lie. Don't trust everything you see. Take everything with a grain of salt. If unemployment nationally is already dipping around 30%, that's 5% higher than it was at the Great Depression. That doesn't mean that this is going to be the Great Depression, but it means that we should be looking at the math right now. I mean, 51% of the U.S. economy, according to a recent Economist article that I read, is service industry in the U.S. So let's do the math on that. I mean, we're looking at hardship. We're looking at people needing to make decisions about, do I buy food and do I eat food, or do I pay rent or utilities? And, to quote Richard Overton, keep living, don't die. I mean,
Right.
This is like real shit time. Like, let's not play around about this. This isn't about, so is my gig going to happen in May? The answer to that is no. It's
Right.
not. It's not going to happen. Is my gig going to happen in September? The answer to that is we don't know.
We don't know.
But quite frankly, all sports and large gatherings of people, like music events, are effectively uninsurable until there's a vaccine. I mean, I'm hearing UT has already pushed classes forward 1 year at minimum, just as a starting point.
Right.
And the NFL and NCAA should be broadcasting something any day now about what their expectations are around their business models. So I mean, I don't mean to like data dump on people,
No.
but it's like, I think music people are resilient. We're creative. We're survivors. We know how to get to the tough at times because that's where we've come from, and that's how we've managed to survive and to get by. So don't like BS us. It's like, listen, this is the story of all working people.
That's right.
Like give us a score and we'll figure out what to do with it, and we'll try not to cause a lot of trouble in the meantime, if that can be helped,
Yeah.
So right now it's like keep living, don't die, don't make the problems worse by like grabbing your AR-15 and like protesting at the state capitol or doing something goofy. It's like, you know, get with your community, help each other, do therapy on each other. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit. I'm worried about people. I have too many dead friends already, and it was like, this has been good times.
Yeah.
We're hitting hard times. Like we're going to need to take care of each other. And that's what we do. That's what we excel at. So let's do that. We got banding together with the Red River Cultural District, which, you know, my peers and I have been, banding together. My peers and I have been fundraising for the past month. We've got about $50K in funding so far to give HEB gift cards with the first round of funding that is just recently closed, and I'm in the process of sending those out. So it's like, eat food.
Wait, are you personally mailing every one of those gift cards?
I'm going to be mailing about 530 gift cards out from my apartment here on the 2-3.
Wow. Your neighbors, everybody at home, we're both in the 2-3.
2-3.
Yeah. And for the map folks at home, that is District 1, and your council member is Natasha Hopper Madison.
Or Mr. Greg Kassar.
That's right. Depending on what part you live in. That's right. That's true.
Yeah. So respect. We got some good council members on our team here.
Right.
Both of them are excellent human beings and excellent leaders.
Yes.
But you know, we got to keep it street level. I mean, much like my friend Ryan Garrett down at Stubbs and Beerland said recently.
Yeah.
Don't wait on the cavalry. The cavalry isn't coming.
No.
It's up to us. It's always been up to us. So you know what? Good news is we know what to do with that. But you know, again, don't believe the hype. Don't believe what you're hearing. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you, and file for unemployment. If you're a worker who's unemployed right now, get all your paperwork together, like you were saying about musicians and other folks who have been in contract labor. I mean, we've always been in a bit of a bum deal as workers. We don't have health insurance. We don't have any guarantees in terms of wages. But guess what? We're all in the same boat, and it's not just here in Austin. It's not just here in Texas. This is worldwide. So I think we have an opportunity to show who we are as human beings, to take care of each other, to feed each other, and to care for each other, and to be ready to rebuild whenever that safe time arises. But from now until then, be planning. Like every dollar you spend that's not on food or on something you need is a dollar that you need to be thinking about why you're spending it. Yeah. Like keeping it real. And if you are spending, if you have that money, please invest that in local economy, invest that in those small businesses, the venues who are selling merch, the restaurants who are selling food. I mean, it was already hard for folks to afford to get by in Austin before all this stuff hit. And now, you know, that jig is up. So we got to survive by staying together and by keeping the pressure on government to provide those solutions. Because again, I do, to echo Brendan, I have a lot of hope in us as Texans, as Americans. I mean, whatever flag you want to fly, whether it's a freak flag or whether it's the red, white, and blue. I mean, let's be real. Like, we can come together and get through this. History has proven it. Our community has proven it. But we got to be sober about it. We got to be real about what we're dealing with, and we got to get serious. So let's get serious as a community. Let's organize.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring Pat in real quick before you go. But just Pat, obviously, the three of us are also a part of Music Makes Austin. Pat is an advisor on that board. Both you and I. You are the president of Music Makes Austin board, or the chair. Sorry, the chair of Music Makes Austin board now. And I know we have a lot of mutual goals and things that we've been working on. But Pat is obviously most of what he's doing is focusing on the MAP program. And Pat, I just wanted to see if you had anything else you wanted to add to this before we bring in our final guest tonight, and any questions you might have for Cody.
Sure enough. I just wanted to say thanks, Cody, for the work you guys are doing. You know, it's a team effort, certainly, to try to get all the relevant information out there to our community. Musicians, venue owners, and service industry workers who are affected by this thing right now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, family,
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we're about.
That's right. Well, thank you again for being on. I hope you'll stick around for our next guest. It's our first time, obviously, doing this. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we normally do this at Beerland. Yeah. We did see Ryan on here earlier. He had a great comment for Brendan that we didn't get to, and I didn't see it until that question until he was gone. But we're going to send it over. And one of that question, of course, was, can the Texas Music Office advocate for TABC tax forgiveness for February and March for music venues? That's a great question, and I know it's something that our colleague Rebecca Reynolds over at Music Venue Alliance and you have been working on as well. And so, that's ultimately up to the state. There's nothing that we can do about it but ask for it. And so we'll keep working on that. But let's get our next guest in here. Cody, thank you so much for being here. And
so much, Cody.
That is.
Thank you so much for being so real and telling your truth. We really appreciate it. We'll definitely get you back on here down the line somewhere, and we can give an update on what's going on with banding together, etc.
Keep living, don't die.
Awesome. And let's see, Nakia, if you'd like, I'll give a quick just kind of rundown on some of the projects we're working on, and then we're going to bring in our musical guest for the evening, which I'm very excited about, Miss Lex Land. And I believe both of you guys are Voice alumni. Is that correct?
That's correct. We were on, technically, we'll talk about that in a minute, but technically we were almost on the same season together.
That's amazing. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the things we're working on Austin, Texas musicians side to provide some relief for our musicians during this time. We figured instead of kind of chasing our tails, putting together information we don't, know a whole lot about, we wanted to really provide the best resources possible. So we've been connecting people directly with Texas Music Office, with Workforce Solutions, and also now with Tala.
And Music Cares. We've definitely been helping get the word out about Music Cares. We've seen a lot of musicians who have been getting those acceptance letters, and those, most of those grants are $1,000 each, and that's been huge.
Yeah, so it's really, right now a matter of us almost interacting one-on-one with our community members when they have questions for us, when they want to ask us, how do I get here or here? At least if we don't have the answers, we can point them in the right direction.
Right.
So that's kind of something we've been working on, as well as you mentioned, a big priority right now is empowering our Musicians Advisory Panel members, the MAP members who represent every diverse community, almost every genre in town and every voting district. And these guys, like LouLou said, are doing all kinds of great work. We've got a voter registration program coming up. These guys are starting to advise on what makes an Austin, Texas musician, what makes a venue that's qualified maybe to participate in some of the live music funds that we're talking about. So we've got a lot going on. And if you guys want to learn more about it, we would love for y'all to join us in the fight. Join us in the battle as we represent Austin, Texas musicians and bring their voice to City Hall. You can find us on all the social platforms simply by typing in ATX Musicians, and also at our website at AustинTexasMusicians.org or ATXMusicians.org. So
thanks, Pat. Is Brendan still in the studio?
Brendan's here, so let me bring Brendan in for a second.
Yeah. So throw the two of us back up there.
You got it, brother. And thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you. Brendan, I know you were you're still on the couch, as we're calling it. If you could, do you have something you want to be able to kind of answer Ryan Garrett's question? Of course, Ryan is the general manager at Stubbs and also the owner of Beerland, co-owner of Beerland. His question, of course, was there a way for the TMO to advocate for tax forgiveness, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to take an opportunity while we're here to say something about it. At the very beginning of this stoppage, we started working on that and put that question to the comptroller through our channels. At that time, the comptroller came back and said, because we were talking about February's accruals, we were going to go ahead and continue to collect.
Right.
But we're keeping that question fresh.
Okay.
So we keep revisiting it.
Okay.
If I hear anything new, of course, you guys will hear about it. But yeah, that's a great question. I expect hopefully some new information soon. But yes, that's something we've talked about and are working on. And we're trying to keep those things front.
I thought that was the case. I do remember Rebecca mentioning it to me as well. And so I'm glad that you were able to stick around a little bit longer. Here's another question from Mark Willenborg right there. What kinds of help can part-time musicians apply for? And you did speak a little bit to that. Obviously, what we were saying earlier, Music Cares, which Pat can throw up there for us. Now that we're getting the Stand with Austin Fund is about to open up some of their programs that they're doing. We've seen Austin Creative Alliance has an artist relief fund. There's a lot of artist relief funds out there in the world, many of which have already said we're no longer even taking applications, right?
Yeah.
No, Music Cares is still taking applications. In fact, our friends at Black Pumas are hosting a fundraiser for them on Thursday. A live stream, so that's fantastic. Any other places that you know of that they can apply, I'm imagining will be on your office website. Is that correct?
Yes, and we just posted a new round that was shared with us by Texas Cultural Trust. So there's Artist Relief Fund on there. Please visit the resource page for evolving relief funds. Mark brings up a good point. If you're working multiple jobs, sometimes that precludes the opportunity to apply for those Texas Workforce Commission funds.
Right.
That's just how this goes. Not loving that situation. That's just the way it is. Please visit our website for more updates. I'm glad I got to answer Ryan's question. I hope we can get some more satisfactory information back, and I really do appreciate all y'all for
thanks so much, man.
For taking the time.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. I'm really glad that you're still here because we're up to our very first musical guest ever on Night Shift Live. This is Lex Land. Lex meet Brendan. Brendan meet Lex.
Hey, Lex.
Hi.
Let's get Lex and I down here to chat for a second, and Brendan, you can hang out on the couch and take a listen. We ran a little bit longer than we had intended tonight, but we're so grateful you're here. For folks watching at home, we're planning on making this a regular broadcast every Wednesday night. We're going to do this. We're going to end every broadcast with a musical performance, and we're going to start with many of our MAP members. Lex is one of our newest MAP members, and that is, of course, the Musicians Advisory Panel that we've been talking about tonight. Lex also wrote the very informative live streaming guide that Austin, Texas Musicians is sponsoring the hosting for that. And we're really grateful to you for that, Lex. But to Pat's little hint there, you and I did meet not on the set of The Voice, but on the lead up to The Voice, because we were both in Hollywood, in Burbank together, going through the ringer, the reality show ringer, to make sure that we were sane enough to get on the show, that we checked all the boxes that we needed to check and all of that. And you ended up on season 2. But
let's just say one of those boxes was not ticked on my side.
But we had a lot of fun in that time period, and that's really our forever friendship formed at the Daily Grill in Burbank, basically. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I did want to ask you some questions, but before I ask you some questions, let's get a song. Why don't you just play us something, and then I'll come back in afterwards. Pat, if you can pull me out and put Lex up. Everybody, Lex Land.
I know I can be quite the example of irony. I may be rough around the edges, but I've got a fragile air. Might as well have a sign slapped on my back that says, "Buyer beware." Handling my heart's a delicate affair, so won't you please take care? So far my romances have all but been Billy Betty and Edward Mitchin. How much can I start before my counterpart cashes in? In love, we know that all is fair until somebody goes on a dare. Handling my heart's a delicate affair, so won't you please take care? Now, I don't mean to frighten nor my grasp tighten. I only mean to make you know. Should you choose to stay forever, live and love together, I will never let you go. So before you embark on this bumpy journey, I urge you to consider carefully. Handling my heart's a turbulent affair, so won't you please take care? Now, I don't mean to frighten nor my grasp tighten. I only mean to make you know. Should you choose to stay forever, live and love together, I will never let you go. So, while I don't want you to tread lightly, I urge you to consider carefully. Handling my heart's a delicate affair, so won't you please take care? Such a delicate affair, won't you please take care?
Yeah. All right. That was great.
Aw, thank you.
It sounds really good over here.
Oh, good. That's
Yeah.
good. I'm using a different setup than what I normally use, so so I was a little nervous about it. But glad it
Yeah,
sounds
it
good.
sounds good to me. And I'm getting ready to kind of up my game for my live stream. And I'm gonna sit down and actually go through your course that you set up. It's so well done. I went through it just to kind of make sure it was good to go. But man, it's really well done. So I'm actually gonna sit and go through the whole thing. And there's the link to it right there on the screen, folks, if you want to learn more. So I, just wanted to ask you, really quick. We were going to talk a little bit about like the history of your music career and that sort of thing. But, there's been a lot of talk tonight about the realities of where we are right now and the importance of being real about those things. And, I know, where I know a lot about how you get by and the way that you do business and you've had this live stream thing going for a while, but you also do other work. And so I'm just curious from your perspective, just how difficult this has been for you and what have you done to make the best of it?
I have to say I'm really not patting myself on the back, but I'm glad that I um scared myself enough a few years ago to diversify my income streams. And by that I mean I just kind of started getting really interested and nerdy about digital marketing, particularly for musicians. And while I wouldn't say my systems are like perfect, or I'm not like raking it in or anything, that spending that time having learned all of that stuff, like more about email marketing and live streaming, which I started doing in 2018, to help support my live show income. I've been able to really build relationships with my fans and supporters. So now that I'm in this period where I'm unable to go out into the real world and do live performances, I know that they have my back and they're continuing to support me right now, which is pretty cool. And I'm just so grateful. So I haven't completely started panicking yet. So that's kind of, it's nice to have had that. And I feel lucky, and I'm also proud of myself for kind of digging into it before it became really dire that I know about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what do you think then has been the single best thing that you've done for yourself to kind of keep yourself sane in this process? Because we are constantly, basically shut in, not able to leave the house very often, those types of things. So, is there one thing in particular you think is the thing that you do the most that really gets you by?
I see. If you were gonna say emotionally, I was gonna say, I'm actually happy I don't have to ever leave the house now because I'm sort of a hermit. As far as like continuing my streams and really making sure that I'm showing up for my fans, even if I don't feel that great, or if I'm feeling kind of negative, just to really try to show up for them and provide some value for them. I feel like that it's going to serve me well now, particularly in the live streams and in all the other ways that I can kind of provide content for them, either through emails or social media, what have you. Um, and it'll serve me now, of course. But I think in the long run, I think it'll be good. I think my people will know that I was there and that I was here for them. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm staying present and replying to emails and keeping in touch with my supporters.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Wow, what was that? Somebody outside just like ran into something, crash outside the door. I know it looks like I'm at the Saxon pub, y'all, but I'm really not. Well, with that, we're going to wrap this up, but could you take us out with a song? And folks at home, we will be back here again next Wednesday night at 7. If you're interested in being a part of Night Shift as a guest to chat or as a musical guest, please watch. We're going to be posting a link after this, but here's our emails. You can always email us directly, but we're going to be posting a link for the bands and artists inside of the Austin, Texas musician community page on our group on Facebook. We're going to be posting a link where you can actually sign up and we can begin to kind of catalog who's interested and when you're available. So next week, we're really hoping that we can get some folks on here. I think we're going to hopefully have Renee from Ham. We're thinking that we're going to be able to have somebody from Workforce Solutions come in and talk shop. And if we're lucky, we might get maybe my council member, Natasha Harper Madison, to come on and talk with us. It'd be great if we could just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all up the district list, all up the council member list, and get those folks in here to really start addressing musicians and taking questions from the public. If you're watching this at home live or you're watching it later, let us know what you thought. Maybe you think there's something we could do better. We'd love to hear that. And we really appreciate everybody being here tonight. My thanks to Lex, my thanks to Cody, to LouLou, and to Brendan, and of course, Pat, if you want to pop back in one more time. My thanks to Pat Buck, the executive director for our Austin, Texas musicians. Super grateful for you running the show tonight and from behind the scenes. And with that, let's let Lex take us out.
Right.
On Night Shift.
Other girls might bark and sneak quite readily at traits that I think might just make a perfect mate. And others yet might squawk and jeer about what I would debate are qualities that might make a good man great. No need to be of noble blood or of the upper crust. You do all the right stuff to make my heart sing. Diamond in the rough, I don't care. I like you just the way you are. I wouldn't change a thing. Otherwise, might waste their lives in way to some big shift in a husband who will never catch a drift. And others yet might spend their time getting all worked up and lift, while a man just feels as though he's got short shrift. No need to be coy or cute, hand on me as you must. I am a bell and I was made to ring. Think you're not enough, I don't care. I like you just the way you are. I wouldn't change a thing. For you know I never have been one to take the beaten path. I've always had the urge to swim upstream. All I've ever wanted is a love that's built to last, and I'll have that free bath for the same thing. No need to revise, improve, modulate, or adjust. You beat your drum, I'll continue to swing. Think you're not enough, I don't care. I just the way you are. I wouldn't change a thing. For you know I never have been one to take the beaten path. I've always had the urge to swim upstream. All I've ever wanted is a love that's built to last, and I'll have that we bat for the same team. No need to revise, improve, modulate, or adjust. You beat your drum, I'll continue to swing. Think you're not enough, I don't care, I like you just the way you are. I wouldn't change a thing. Just the way you are, I wouldn't change a thing. Just the way you are, I wouldn't change. Except perhaps one little caveat. Will you make me your bride or not? 'Cause other than that, I wouldn't change you. Other than that, I wouldn't dream to change you.